Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Whispering Bee. This is where real stories about love, friendship, betrayal, and healing come alive. No sugarcoating, no fairy tales, just raw, honest tales about the messy, beautiful reality of human connection. Whether you are healing from heartbreak, navigating complicated relationships, or simply love powerful stories that feel real, this channel is for you. Subscribe and join our community. Hit that notification bell because new stories drop regularly and you will not want to miss them. Remember, every ending is just a new beginning in disguise. Marcus Davis had always believed he was living the American dream. At 42 years old, he stood as the chief financial officer of a mid-sized tech company in Seattle, pulling in a comfortable $250,000 annually. His wife of 15 years, Rebecca, was a real estate agent who claimed to bring in decent money, though Marcus never really scrutinized the numbers too closely. He trusted her completely. Their home was a beautiful 4-bedroom Craftsman in Queen Anne valued at just over $2 million. They drove matching luxury SUVs. They vacationed in Maui every winter and spent summers in the south of France. Rebecca wore designer clothes and carried handbags that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Marcus never complained. He loved seeing her happy. What Marcus did not know was that Rebecca had been conducting an affair for nearly 3 years with Derek Paulson, a personal trainer she had met at their expensive gym. What Marcus also did not know was that Rebecca had been systematically draining their joint accounts, funneling money to secret accounts, and preparing for the day she would leave him and take everything. That day came on a Tuesday in October. Marcus came home early from work with plans to surprise Rebecca with reservations at their favorite restaurant. Instead, he found Derek's car in the driveway. He found Rebecca's clothes scattered across their bedroom floor. He found his wife and her lover in the bed he had paid for in the house he had financed. The confrontation was ugly. Rebecca did not apologize. She did not cry. Instead, she smiled coldly and told Marcus she wanted a divorce. She told him she had been planning this for years. She told him she was going to take him for everything he had, and initially it looked like she would succeed. Marcus moved out that same night, checking into a downtown hotel in a daze. The next morning, he called his buddy from college, James Patterson, who had become one of the best divorce attorneys in Washington state. James agreed to meet him that afternoon. The meeting did not go well initially. James reviewed Marcus's financial situation, and his face grew grimmer by the minute. Because Washington was a community property state, everything Marcus had earned during the marriage would be split 50-50. The house would need to be sold and divided. His retirement accounts would be halved. His stock options would be shared. But that was not the worst part. James discovered that Marcus and Rebecca had joint credit cards with balances totaling over $300,000. Rebecca had been the one making most of the charges, but Marcus was equally liable. There were personal loans Marcus had never seen totaling another $150,000, all in both their names, all legally binding. Marcus felt the room spinning. How is this possible? I never signed for these loans. James pulled up the documents on his laptop. See these signatures? These are digital signatures tied to your email account. Did Rebecca have access to your email? Marcus's stomach dropped. We shared passwords for everything. I thought that's what married couples did. Marcus, I need to ask you something important. Did you keep records of your accounts, bank statements, investment portfolios, tax returns? Rebecca handled all that. She said it was easier since she worked from home. I was always so busy at work. James closed his laptop slowly. Marcus, I am going to be straight with you. You are in serious trouble. Your wife has been planning this for a long time. She has been stockpiling debt in your name, spending money like crazy, and I would bet my law degree that she has been hiding assets. Over the next week, James's investigators uncovered the depth of Rebecca's deception. She had opened credit cards in Marcus's name using his information. She had taken out personal loans, forging his signature in some cases. She had been transferring money from their joint accounts to accounts Marcus never knew existed. The kicker was that Rebecca had been claiming almost no income on their joint tax returns for years. She told Marcus that real estate was slow, that she was building her client base. In reality, she had been working primarily in cash transactions, with wealthy clients never reporting the income. She had squirreled away an estimated $700,000 in accounts held in her sister's name. but proving it would be nearly impossible. The divorce proceedings began in November, and they were brutal from day one. Rebecca hired Bradley Morrison, an attorney famous for destroying husbands in divorce court. Morrison was ruthless, expensive, and very good at his job. Rebecca's strategy became clear immediately. She claimed she had been a devoted housewife who had sacrificed her career to support Marcus's ambitions. She claimed Marcus had been emotionally abusive, controlling, and distant. She claimed she deserved 70% of everything because she had been the one maintaining their home and their life. It was all lies, but she delivered them with tears in her eyes and conviction in her voice. The judge was a woman named Patricia Hendricks, who had a reputation for favoring wives in divorce settlements. James warned Marcus that they were facing an uphill battle. The temporary orders came down in December. Marcus was ordered to move out of the family home and continue paying the mortgage. He was ordered to pay Rebecca $5,000 per month in temporary spousal support. He was ordered to maintain her health insurance, her car insurance, and her cell phone plan. Marcus was living in a cramped studio apartment, eating ramen noodles, while Rebecca continued living in their $1 million home with Derek, who had quietly moved in. The discovery phase of the divorce stretched through winter and into spring. James subpoenaed Rebecca's bank, records her emails, her phone, records everything he could get his hands on. But Rebecca had been careful. She had used encrypted apps for communications with Derek. She had conducted most of her secret transactions in cash. The accounts held in her sister's name had no direct paper trail back to Rebecca. Marcus spent a fortune on forensic accountants and private investigators. They found evidence that Rebecca had been hiding income, but not enough to prove it beyond reasonable doubt in court. They found evidence of the affair, but Washington was a no-fault divorce state, so adultery did not matter. By June, Marcus had spent over $200,000 in legal fees, and they had not even gone to trial yet. James sat Marcus down for a difficult conversation. "Marcus, I think we need to consider settling. If we go to trial, you are going to spend another $100,000 minimum, and Judge Hendricks is likely to side with Rebecca on most issues. We might win on some points, but the cost will bleed you dry." Marcus felt defeated. So she wins. "She cheats on me, she steals from me, she lies about everything, and she wins. I am sorry, Marcus. Sometimes the legal system does not deliver justice. It delivers resolution. There is a difference, but Marcus could not accept it. Something in him hardened. He told James to keep fighting. He would find a way. In July, Marcus attended his company's annual summer barbecue. He had been avoiding social events, but his CEO had personally asked him to come. Marcus went reluctantly. At the barbecue, he ran into Linda Zhao, the head of the company's IT security division. Linda and Marcus had worked together on several projects over the years. She was brilliant with computers and had a reputation for being able to find anything in any system. They got to talking, and eventually Marcus's divorce came up. He mentioned in passing that he wished he could prove Rebecca had been hiding income. Linda's eyes narrowed. "Your wife is a real estate agent, right?" "Yeah, why?" "Real estate transactions are public record, Marcus. Sales prices, deed transfers, mortgage information. It is all online. If she was doing deals under the table, there would still be some kind of footprint." Marcus had not thought of that angle. The problem is she was supposedly doing most of her deals in cash or through private networks. Nothing official. Linda smiled. "Marcus, you work with AI and data analytics every day at our company. Why are you not using those same tools for this?" That conversation changed everything. Linda offered to help Marcus in her spare time. She was going through her own messy divorce and understood what he was facing. Over the next 6 weeks, Linda and Marcus spent evenings and weekends building a comprehensive database of real estate transactions in the Seattle area going back 7 years. They used public records databases to pull every property sale in King County. They cross-referenced those sales with real estate agent listings. They used AI algorithms to identify patterns in pricing, timing, and buyer-seller relationships. They looked for transactions where Rebecca's name appeared anywhere in the public record, even tangentially. What they found was stunning. Rebecca had been involved in dozens of transactions that she had never reported to Marcus or to the IRS. She had been working as a middle person, connecting wealthy foreign buyers with luxury properties. She would never officially list herself as the agent of record, instead working through shell companies and taking cash payments for her referral fees. Linda found email metadata showing Rebecca had sent and received thousands of messages about these deals. She found IP addresses connecting Rebecca to websites for offshore real estate investment groups. She found digital fingerprints showing Rebecca had been logging into bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. It was exactly what Marcus needed. But they still had to prove it in court. James was ecstatic when Marcus presented the new evidence. "This is huge, Marcus. This completely changes the case, but we need to be strategic about how we introduce it." They filed a motion to reopen discovery based on newly discovered evidence. Rebecca's attorney, Morrison, objected strenuously, claiming the evidence had been obtained improperly. Judge Hendricks ordered a hearing. At the hearing, Linda testified about her methodology. She explained in clear, simple terms how she had used only publicly available information combined with basic data analysis tools. Nothing she had done was illegal or even questionable. It was simply good detective work. Morrison tried to discredit her, but Linda was unshakable. She had brought printouts of every database query, every algorithm specification, every source document. She had done everything by the book. Judge Hendricks ruled that the evidence was admissible. Rebecca's deposition was scheduled for late August. Marcus attended along with James and a court reporter. Morrison was there, looking nervous for the first time since the divorce began. James methodically walked Rebecca through the evidence. He showed her records of property transactions she had never disclosed. He showed her emails discussing cash payments. He showed her login records for foreign bank accounts. Rebecca's story fell apart quickly. She claimed she did not remember certain deals. She claimed the emails were taken out of context. She claimed she had reported all her income properly. James then played his ace. Linda had found Rebecca's actual tax returns, the ones she had filed separately without Marcus's knowledge. Rebecca had been filing as married, filing separately for the past 3 years, claiming almost no income, while Marcus filed jointly, showing all of his income. It was tax fraud. It was identity theft. It was perjury in the divorce proceedings. Morrison called for a break. He and Rebecca huddled in the hallway for 20 minutes. When they came back, Morrison's entire demeanor had changed. "My client would like to discuss settlement terms." The settlement negotiations took 2 weeks. Rebecca was now in a position of extreme weakness. If the evidence of her hidden income and fraudulent tax returns went to trial, she would likely face criminal charges. The IRS would come after her. She could lose everything and possibly go to prison. Marcus held all the cards now. James drafted a settlement proposal that was aggressive but not unreasonable. Marcus would keep the house, but would buy out Rebecca's share at the current market value. However, the buyout would be reduced by the amount of debt Rebecca had secretly accumulated in Marcus's name. All credit card debt and personal loans that Rebecca had taken out would be her sole responsibility. Marcus would be removed from those obligations as part of the settlement. Rebecca would receive no spousal support. None. She had been earning significant income throughout the marriage, income she had hidden and lied about. She was not entitled to support. Marcus would keep 100% of his retirement accounts and stock options. Rebecca had forfeited her community property interest through her fraudulent conduct. Rebecca would be required to repay Marcus for half of all marital funds she had diverted to secret accounts. Based on Linda's analysis, that amounted to approximately $350,000. Finally, Rebecca would be required to cooperate with amending their tax returns for the past 3 years. She would be responsible for any penalties and interest resulting from her fraudulent filings. Morrison tried to negotiate, but he had no leverage. If Rebecca did not accept the settlement, Marcus and James would turn all their evidence over to the IRS and the local district attorney. Rebecca could fight it out with the federal government and potentially go to prison. On September 15th, Rebecca signed the settlement agreement. She had tears in her eyes, but they were tears of anger and frustration, not remorse. Marcus felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The divorce was finalized in October, exactly 1 year after Marcus had discovered Rebecca's affair. He walked out of the courthouse a free man. The financial damage had been significant. He had spent nearly $250,000 in legal fees and expert costs, but he had avoided financial ruin. He had kept his home, his retirement, his future. Rebecca, on the other hand, had lost nearly everything. She had to liquidate assets to pay Marcus the money she owed him. She had to take on all the debt she had accumulated. The IRS came after her with penalties and interest for the unreported income. She ended up owing the government over $400,000. Her relationship with Derek fell apart within months. Apparently, Derek had been attracted to Rebecca's wealthy lifestyle, not to Rebecca herself. When the money dried up, so did his interest. Rebecca's real estate career imploded. Word spread through the industry about her fraudulent practices. Her license was suspended pending an ethics investigation. Several of her former clients sued her for misrepresentation. Marcus heard through mutual acquaintances that Rebecca had moved to Arizona, living with her sister, working as a receptionist at a car dealership. She was driving a 10-year-old Honda and living in a one-bedroom apartment. Marcus did not gloat. He simply moved forward. In December, about 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Marcus received an unexpected phone call from an IRS investigator named Christina. She wanted to meet with him regarding Rebecca's tax case. They met at a coffee shop near Marcus's office. Christina explained that the IRS had been investigating Rebecca based on the evidence Marcus and Linda had uncovered. The investigation had expanded beyond just Rebecca. It turned out that Rebecca had been part of a larger scheme involving multiple real estate agents and foreign buyers. They were helping wealthy individuals from China and Russia move money into the United States through real estate purchases, avoiding currency controls and laundering money in the process. The investigation had led to indictments of 3 other agents and several buyers. Rebecca was cooperating with authorities to avoid prison time, but she was still facing substantial civil penalties. But here was the interesting part. The IRS had a whistleblower program that provided rewards to people who reported significant tax fraud. Because Marcus had provided the initial evidence that led to the broader investigation, he was eligible for a reward. Christina explained that the IRS had already collected millions of dollars in back taxes, penalties, and interest from the various participants in the scheme. Marcus's share of the whistleblower reward would be 15% of the total amount collected from Rebecca specifically. 3 months later, Marcus received a check from the United States Department of the Treasury for $123,000. He had not expected it. He had not been seeking it, but it felt like cosmic justice. Marcus used part of his whistleblower reward to take Linda Zhao out for the nicest dinner Seattle had to offer. She had been instrumental in uncovering the evidence that saved him. He wanted to show his appreciation. Over dinner, they talked about their respective divorces, both now finalized. They talked about their careers, their families, their hopes for the future. They laughed more than Marcus had laughed in years. They started dating casually in the spring. No pressure, no expectations, just 2 people who understood what the other had been through. By summer, they were serious. By fall, they had moved in together. Marcus sold the Queen Anne house with all its painful memories and bought a modern condo downtown. Fresh start. New memories. Linda's divorce had been finalized around the same time as Marcus's. She had been married to a man who had been emotionally abusive and controlling. She had finally found the courage to leave and was rebuilding her life just like Marcus. They understood each other in a way that people who had not been through similar experiences could not. They both valued honesty, transparency, and trust in a relationship. They both knew what it felt like to be betrayed, and they both were committed to never putting another person through that pain. 2 years after the divorce, Marcus ran into Rebecca at a grocery store in downtown Seattle. He almost did not recognize her. She had aged considerably. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced with generic department store outfits. She looked tired and worn down. She saw him at the same moment. For a second, they just stared at each other across the produce section. Then Rebecca walked over. Marcus. Hi, Rebecca. There was an awkward silence. Finally, Rebecca spoke. I heard you are doing well, that you are with someone new. I am happy. Rebecca looked down at her shopping basket filled with budget brands and generic products. That is good. I am glad someone ended up happy. Marcus could have been cruel. He could have thrown her crimes back in her face. He could have reminded her of everything she had done to him. But looking at her now defeated and broken, he felt only pity. Rebecca, I hope you find some peace. I really do. But I also hope you learned something from all this. She looked up at him with tired eyes. I learned that cheating never pays in the end. I thought I was so smart. I thought I had it all figured out. I was going to take you for everything and live happily ever after with Derek. Instead, I lost everything. My home, my career, my reputation, the man I thought I loved, everything. Marcus nodded. You know what the ironic thing is? If you had just been honest with me from the start, if you had just told me you were unhappy and wanted a divorce, we could have split things fairly and both moved on. You would still have your career. You would not owe the IRS hundreds of thousands of dollars. You would not have a criminal record. I know, Rebecca said quietly. I was greedy. I was selfish. I wanted everything. Now I have nothing. They stood in silence for another moment. Then Rebecca said, I am sorry, Marcus. For what it is worth, I am truly sorry for what I did to you. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. I accept your apology, Rebecca. Not for your sake, but for mine. I do not want to carry anger anymore. I am moving forward with my life. Rebecca nodded, tears forming in her eyes. Goodbye, Marcus. Goodbye, Rebecca. Marcus watched her walk away, pushing her shopping cart toward the checkout line. He felt a strange sense of closure. The anger and betrayal that had consumed him for so long had faded. He had gotten his revenge not through cruelty or vindictiveness, but through patience, persistence, and the truth. Marcus left the grocery store and drove to Linda's office to pick her up for lunch. As he drove, he reflected on everything that had happened over the past few years. He had been betrayed by the person he trusted most. He had been lied to, stolen from, and nearly destroyed financially. For a while, it had seemed like Rebecca would get away with everything, like she would ride off into the sunset with her lover and his money, while he was left with nothing but debt and heartbreak. But that was not how the story ended. Through hard work, careful investigation, and a refusal to give up, Marcus had turned the tables. He had exposed Rebecca's lies, uncovered her fraudulent schemes, and held her accountable. The legal system, which had initially seemed stacked against him, had ultimately delivered justice. Rebecca had lost everything because of her own greed and dishonesty. She had wanted to cheat the system to take what was not hers, to leave Marcus in ruins while she prospered. Instead, her schemes had collapsed around her, leaving her with nothing but debt, disgrace, and regret. Marcus, on the other hand, had rebuilt his life. He had found love again with someone who valued honesty and integrity. He had kept his home, his career, his financial security. He had even received an unexpected windfall from the IRS whistleblower program. But more importantly, he had reclaimed his peace of mind. He had proven to himself that he was not a victim. He was a survivor. He had fought back intelligently and strategically, and he had won. Linda was waiting outside her building when Marcus pulled up. She slid into the passenger seat and leaned over to kiss him. How was your morning? She asked. Interesting, actually. I ran into Rebecca at the grocery store. Linda's eyebrows went up. Really? How did that go? Marcus smiled. She apologized. She told me she lost everything. She looked like she meant it. How do you feel about that? Marcus thought for a moment. Honestly, I feel good, not because she is suffering, but because I am not. I have moved on. I am happy. I have you. I have my career. I have my future. She cannot take any of that away from me. Linda squeezed his hand. You earned this, Marcus. You fought for it. A lot of people would have given up, but you did not. They drove to their favorite lunch spot, a little Vietnamese place near the waterfront. Over pho and spring rolls, they talked about their upcoming vacation plans. They were going to spend 2 weeks in New Zealand hiking and exploring. As they ate, Marcus thought about how different his life was now compared to 2 years ago. Back then, he had been living a lie, married to a woman who was systematically betraying him. He had been blind to what was happening, too trusting, too willing to believe the best of people. The divorce had been brutal. It had cost him a fortune in legal fees. It had consumed more than a year of his life. It had tested him in ways he never imagined. But it had also taught him valuable lessons. It had taught him to trust but verify. It had taught him that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who can hurt you most. It had taught him that the legal system could be frustratingly slow and imperfect, but that persistence and good evidence could still prevail. Most importantly, it had taught him that revenge was not about being cruel or vindictive. It was about standing up for yourself, refusing to be a victim, and making sure that wrongdoing had consequences. Rebecca had tried to destroy him financially. She had tried to take everything he had worked for and leave him with nothing but debt. She had lied to the courts, lied to the IRS, and lied to Marcus himself. But in the end, her lies had caught up with her. The truth had come out. Justice had been served, and Marcus had gotten his last laugh. 3 years after the divorce was finalized, Marcus and Linda got married. It was a small ceremony on the beach in Maui with just close friends and family. No expensive wedding, no elaborate production. Just 2 people who loved each other making a commitment. Marcus had been promoted to chief operating officer at his company. Linda had started her own cybersecurity consulting firm and was doing extremely well. Together, they had built a comfortable, prosperous life, based on mutual respect, trust, and honesty. They heard through the grapevine that Rebecca had moved back to Seattle and was working as an administrative assistant at a small property management company. She was still paying off her debts to the IRS. She was still dealing with the consequences of her choices. Marcus bore her no ill will. He had moved past anger and resentment. He simply did not think about her anymore. One evening, Marcus and Linda were having dinner at home when Linda asked him a question. "Do you ever regret fighting so hard in the divorce? It cost you so much money and time. Do you ever wish you had just settled early and walked away?" Marcus thought about it carefully. "No," he said finally. "I do not regret it. If I had settled early, Rebecca would have taken me for everything. I would have been financially ruined. More than that, I would have felt like a victim for the rest of my life. By fighting back, by uncovering the truth, by holding her accountable, I took control of my own story. I turned what could have been the worst thing that ever happened to me into something that made me stronger." Linda smiled. "That is why I love you. You do not give up." Marcus raised his glass, to not giving up, to fighting for what is right, and to getting the last laugh. They clinked glasses and drank. Outside, the sun was setting over Elliott Bay, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Marcus looked out at the view and felt genuinely happy. He had been through hell and come out the other side. He had been betrayed and had survived. He had been knocked down and had gotten back up. Rebecca had tried to destroy him, but she had failed. In trying to take everything from him, she had ended up losing everything herself. In trying to cheat the system, she had been caught and punished. Marcus had won not through luck or chance, but through intelligence, persistence, and a refusal to be a victim. He had gotten his revenge, but more importantly, he had gotten his life back. And that, he thought as he looked at Linda and smiled, was the best revenge of all.